first Pitt football spring scrimmage is in the books, and the third week of practices are underway on the south side. Welcome in to the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse. I'm Nathan Bryce here. Be sure to check out all of our Pitt football content over on the Pittsburgh Sports Now website. Has takeaways and notes from the first spring scrimmage, along with some stuff from the first practice of the week, practice number 6, that is, and it was moved ahead of day from Tuesday up until Monday, the 24th, in honor of Mason Alexander, so the team can get out to Indianapolis, Indiana, Fishers, Indiana to be exact, as they are holding his funeral services, the early enrollment freshman cornerback that was killed in a car accident at the beginning of the month. Pat Narduzzi said about 60 players were going to go and head out there. Some coaches and support staff were already there and on Monday and going to be there today on Tuesday, the 25th. So Pitt football moving their practice until Monday, just 2 days following their spring scrimmage, and a lot of takeaways Narduzzi noted from the scrimmage. The defense notably won. They were at practice wearing the blue jerseys, as is the winner typically wears for Pitt football, and a lot of it came from takeaways, a lot of turnovers from the offense, and Narduzzi noted that a lot of it was more forced by the Pitt offense than necessarily the defense going and making big plays. So that was something interesting to hear, but it's the first practice or the first scrimmage at that. So some rust. Typically, he says the defense comes out and wins the first scrimmage, whether that's in the spring or the fall, and could be the case as they continue with their next scrimmage this coming Saturday. But that was the case. Some guys we saw in a video, but also we're talking about Kyle Lewis with an interception, Javon McIntyre, Cruz Brookins, a couple other guys looked to have turnovers in Davion Pritchard. Josh Guerriere, the freshman safety, was a guy we heard at PSN that had made some plays on defense for Pitt. Now, roughly 45 plays for the 1s and 2s on Saturdays, about 25 for the 3s, and Narduzzi again had noted earlier prior to the scrimmage that this is one of the healthier teams he's had in spring, at least, despite having, as he mentioned, 19 off-season surgeries, which is a ton, but only a few guys that have not been around spring camp so far, and Derek Davis, the running back's been out with an injury. Narduzzi mentioned cornerback Rashad Battle will be out, most likely going to miss spring. So those are some guys that have been confirmed, that have not been around, that have been confirmed that they won't most likely practice for spring. A lot of other guys, bumps and bruises, banged up, that have been off to the side, working through some injuries, it seems. But that was the big takeaway. I mean, defense was on top of things on Saturday. Very windy, gusty day down at Acrisure Stadium. Saw some rain, even maybe some hail that came down in the Pittsburgh area. So they had to play through those elements. And despite maybe some windy conditions, Pat Narduzzi quoted and said, it wasn't good enough, period. End quote. The QB play was not good enough. He didn't say specifically who threw the interceptions, but he just felt the offense wasn't up to par with at least the playmaking ability through the air that it could have been. He did say that the running backs, the running game was particularly well. We saw Joel Goff in a video score a touchdown in the scrimmage. The offensive line seems to be coming along pretty well, and that'll be the unit I'm talking about later in this episode of who I watched at spring practice on Monday. So we'll get into that in a bit, but yeah, so the offense seemed like it took its lumps. Defense making plays, kind of as you would expect with the playmakers that they have. Kyle Lewis, Cruz Brookins, Javon McIntyre, 3 guys that should be and have come through and made plays throughout that spring scrimmage. He talked about running the ball, Pat Narduzzi. He said roughly about 4.3 to 4.5 yards per carry. So said that was a bright spot on the offense. Liked what he saw there. Of course, with Desmond Reed, Goff scoring a touchdown. Jakarian Turner, Boozy as they call him, seemed to make a couple of plays. We saw him. And then another touchdown on offense came from Kenny Johnson, a wide receiver. We talked to him and heard from him on Monday. That's up on our YouTube channel. You can go see that full press conference over there. And he talked about how the chemistry has improved so much and progressed so much between him and quarterback Eli Holstein, which is huge because Kenny Johnson is going to be your number 1 wide receiver on this team this year for the Pitt Panthers. And he talked about how the exact play that happened for his touchdown, he said he caught Cruz Brookins, the safety, creeping up a little bit and said, you know what? We're going to make a change here. He signaled to Eli Holstein, got a play change, called an audible at the line of scrimmage, and decided that they were going to throw a fade ball. And that's what connected. That's what got the touchdown. And that's a big indicator of what this connection could be this season for Pitt. And Kenny talked about being a lot more comfortable at changing plays at the line of the scrimmage, which is another variation to this offense. Maybe we didn't see a ton of last year with the first year with Cade Bell and Eli Holstein, that they didn't call maybe a ton of audibles and changes at the line of scrimmage, but that could be something that could advance this offense even more. And Kenny Johnson says his route running is the best it's ever been right now, and that's a big key he's always talked about he wants to work on. So your number one wide receiver, Kenny Johnson, if he can be a really good route runner and also be the downfield sideline threat that he has been, especially this past season for Pitt, I mean, he has the true makings of being a true number one guy and can be a big piece of this offense as is expected. But it's good to hear that he is making plays in the scrimmage along with Eli Holstein. Again, don't know who threw those picks. Could have been Eli with a couple. Could have been some of the younger guys, Mason Heinschel, David Lynch, all four QBs getting involved and throwing the ball around on Saturday. Some other guys that we heard from some sources that really stood out, as I mentioned, Josh Guerriere, sounded like he had a turnover. There were a couple fumbles offensively as well, so it could have been fumble recoveries. Rashawn Murray, the Cal U Division II All-American transfer, also Pittsburgh native, sounded like he had a pretty strong game. Looks like he's had a pretty good camp. He looks pretty good out there. He should be a guy in the two deep at the cornerback position behind Tamon Lynum and Rashad Battle. So he's a guy that sounds like is making some plays. We saw a clip of him on Pitt's Twitter account with a big pass breakup in practice a few weeks ago. And then a guy who I think is the biggest one to note that I heard was Nate Temple. And he's entering his 7th season, and he's going to be a guy that Pitt is going to really need to rely on because he knows the program. He's played a ton at the end. Obviously, he's faced plenty of injuries over his time here at Pitt, but he has the experience. He knows how to get it done over guys like Blaine Spires coming in and Joey Zielinski and Jaden Moore, who's a little bit younger. But if Nate Temple can have a really good spring camp, go into the offseason, and have a really good fall camp, I'd expect him to be, potentially the starter on this D at the end, which at first, at the start of camp, really wasn't sure if he'd be the guy to start at DN. Thought maybe Spires or Zielinski could come in, but Nate Temple, he's been here. He knows how to do it. So he's a guy that sounds like he had a really good spring scrimmage, and going to keep an eye on him now through the next couple of weeks just to see how he's doing, his speed, his ability to get it sort of into the backfield and off the end. So those were some guys that sounded like they stuck out in the spring practice, spring scrimmage at Acrisure Stadium. They will have another one this coming Saturday, along with another one, the third one on April 5th before the ultimate spring scrimmage open blue and gold game to fans at Acrisure Stadium on April 12th. That game starting at 1 o'clock. Now, some recruits that were in attendance. Obviously, with the scrimmages, always big to get some recruits in. Two guys that were on campus this past weekend that committed to the Panthers. Dylan Wester, 3-star wide receiver, committed on Friday to the 2026 class. He's a speedy guy in the wide receiver corps. Projects as a slot guy, and Cade Bell and wide receiver coach J.J. Lasser just continue to attack the state of Florida. They continue to get guys. Their 2 recruits that they have committed so far in the 2027 class are from Florida, and Jacob Thomas, who just received 4-star status from On3's industry rankings, and running back Tyler Reed, the younger brother Desmond Reed, in the 2027 class. So they're pushing hard in Florida, and they're being rewarded. As Dylan Wester, he was here for an extended spring visit. We reported on it first over on Pittsburgh Sports Now. Was here between Wednesday all the way through Saturday. So he was here for a while, just getting a whole in-depth look at this Pitt program. He's going to be back on an official visit in June. but he committed on Friday. Marcus Jennings, who is going to slot in as an outside linebacker for Pitt, committed on officially on Sunday. The Pat signal on Twitter came out on Saturday, so he did give his verbal on Saturday while he was there. He's from Michigan. He sort of projects as a hybrid type guy where he could play safety, but maybe a nickel as well. But outside linebackers, where he is fitting in right now with Ryan Manilak's unit, was heavily recruited by Archie Collins. So Pitt gets another 3-star guy in there in Marcus Jennings. So the 2026 class is off and running here in the spring window. 4 commits. Also in attendance was the safety commit Isaac Patterson, 3-star recruit from Ohio. So he was in town, got an in-depth look at the program. He's going to be back for an official visit in June. Some other guys that to note, 3-star offensive lineman from Lakewood, Ohio, Mason Wilhelm, just wrote about him over on Pittsburgh Sports Now. You can go take a look at that. Feeling really like a priority. Pitt has recruited him for a while now. He's been contacted since he was a freshman. Tim Salem, the old tight ends coach, was the one that started it all, then shifted to Archie Collins, who's the area recruiter, and now on to Jeremy Darveau. Pitt's visited him. He's visited here a couple times, was here in November to see Clemson, the Pitt-Clemson game. Had a good experience then, but eventually, and now he has that all-important offer in his pocket, and it sounds like Pitt is a very good bet to land him, or at least a top 3 school right now, as he told me. He's visiting Michigan State, Vanderbilt, just visited Syracuse on Monday, and he'll also go to Ohio State, as he's a legacy Ohio State recruit. Doesn't have an offer from them, but his dad, Matt Wilhelm, played there, won a national title in 2002, played in the NFL for a handful of years with the Chargers and the Packers and the 49ers. So Mason Wilhelm's going to be a key guy. He did just lock in an official visit for June 12th through the 14th. So that'll be an interesting one to note. I think Pitt has a good shot to land him. Sounds like he's very high on the program, but it sounds like Syracuse, Vanderbilt, some other schools in Michigan State, Wisconsin are expressing their interest as well. A couple other guys, Damon Ferguson, a 4-star running back on 3, 4-star recruit. Pitt is also high on him. He'll be back in June for an official visit. Pitt is really looking to land him. He's very talented, does exactly what Cade Bell and this offense wants. He can catch out of the backfield. He has speed. He's versatile, dynamic. About 5'10", 5'11" is his height. So he's got some height to him. A little bit of height to him. I mean, Pitt obviously is starting to really like these smaller, speedier guys. North Carolina seems like they are a team that's going to push for him among some others. So he'll be one that Pitt really wants to get. They get him back on campus in June. A couple other guys, 3-star running back Kaj Baker was on campus. Tyler Ruxer, a tight end who was recently offered, was there. Local guy, Amani Christian Academy 2027 defensive back Gabriel Jenkins was there. He's visited a couple of times. So he'll be one to watch in the 2027 class. And speaking of Amani Christian Academy, we just posted that 2026 defensive back David Davis has committed to Penn State, was a 4-star recruit. Pitt was in his top 6 schools. Pitt was a school that was trying to push for him, but they miss out on him. And there's plenty of whippeal defensive back options, though. Left for Pitt, Lawrence J. Timmons is a guy that he's probably their top guy on their board right now in terms of whippeal guys in the DB room, being recruited as a safety, he tells me. So that'll be an interesting guy to watch. Dayron Barksdale was at practice on last Thursday. Another guy from Steel Valley, real good connection with Cruz Brookins. So that's a ton of the notes from the spring scrimmage, along with some recruiting talk. Now, getting into Monday's practice, got a chance to see them once again, got an extended look at them, got 6 periods in the book, usually about 5 periods is what we see. They were back indoors for the second consecutive practice, with the weather, of course, being always fluctuating here in Pittsburgh. But they were back indoors. Got to see some punt work again. Caleb Junko, mentioned him a little bit last show, and how important he's going to be for this Pitt team, and if his development can be improved upon for another year, he's going to be very big for Pitt if he can get to another level there. But in terms of returning punts, saw a couple of guys. Desmond Reed is back there as he was last year. Katarius Hicks, The Louisville transfer was back there, along with freshman Cam Sapp. And I'd expect, not in the punt return, but in the kick return game, I'd expect Tyreek Robinson to be back in the fold again there. Now, the unit that I watched closely on Monday was the offensive line unit. This is probably the biggest storyline, the biggest question mark in this camp during the offseason entering 2025. Pitt invested its resources to the offensive line in the transfer portal this past offseason, this past couple months. They brought in 3 transfers. Jeff Piercy from Michigan, who has 4+ years of playing experience, not a ton of starting experience, but coming from Michigan, you get to play on that line. There's a lot of benefits to that. Learning from that unit. They won a national title. He was part of one of the best offensive lines in the country over the past couple of years. So that's a huge addition for Pitt. He's big. He stands at 6'8", and he looks all of it. He's going to play left tackle. He's working at left tackle right now. I would say he's going to be your starter. I know Kendall Stanley, who we'll touch on in a second, could fight for a role there because Ryan Baer is expected to be the right tackle starter unless things change there. But Jeff Piercy, he looks big. He has great push. He's just strong. He's a strong guy. But it still seems like there's some things to learn for him. Jeremy Darveau was coaching him up. There's still a lot. I mean, obviously the transition into a new program is tough, but there still could be stuff to learn from him. But that role for him at left tackle, Pitt, 3 years in a row has had some issues there with season-ending injuries. Matt Gonzalez, Branson Taylor, Carter Warren, all leaving the past 3 seasons with injury. So Piercy's looking to stay healthy. He's looking to make an impact, be protector of the blind side for Eli Holstein. He's going to play a big role this year for Pitt if he can continue through the spring camp at a high level and win out that starting battle. Obviously, that's not decided yet. Still a lot of ways to go. But pushing him will be Kendall Stanley, who comes in from Charlotte. He played a lot of his career at right tackle. However, he feels most comfortable at left tackle. He told us when he spoke a couple of weeks ago. Now on Monday, we saw a live period that he was playing right tackle. Ryan Baer was off to the sides. He was in pads, but working out, maybe could have been bumped and bruised during the spring scrimmage. So Stanley did get some reps in at right tackle. But it's good. It's a good thing. You have a depth guy who has plenty of playing experience, more starting experience, I believe, than Piercy. I don't have the numbers specifically, but that's a guy that's going to be important for this Pitt team at tackle, and something that Pitt really needs to shore up is this offensive line depth. And could it be a strength this year for Pitt? Because it hasn't been over the past couple of years. Poor play, inconsistent play, injuries, all of the above has just been an issue for this Pitt team. Now, at tackle, I'm going to get into the twos here in a second, but Terrence Enos is another guy I'm going to talk about here in just a moment, who I was a little bit impressed with at Monday's practice. Finishing out the top unit, though, Keith Govea, he will be at left guard. He just looks strong, upper body-wise. He has broad shoulders. He's just got some strength. Players have talked about how mean and physical he can be as an interior guard, so that's a nice pickup, it sounds like, so far in camp from Richmond. And then you have Lyndon Cooper at center, BJ Williams at right guard, returners there. BJ Williams arguably might be the best returning lineman in just terms of consistency and play. He will be a redshirt junior this year. Lyndon Cooper, of course, came in from NC State prior to last year. He played particularly okay. He talked about there's a lot to improve for his game as well. Felt he took too many penalties, allowed too many sacks. But I thought he played okay. His PFF grade wasn't too bad. Again, I don't have that specifically, but he had an okay season. I mean, I liked his speed, his ability to get up to, up a couple levels in the run game, into the defense, up into the secondary as well. Solid play where he just had the wheels, and I just really liked what I saw there in terms of what Pitt wants to do with their offensive line and being quick at that. Now, that second unit got a little bit more of an idea of what's going on there. Kendall Stanley, I mean, he looks like he'll be in the second unit if Bear can continue to hold on to that right tackle spot and Piercy can get that left tackle. But Terrence Enos, he was working at left tackle. I was impressed with some of the practice reps that I saw from him speed wise. They did some practice drills on guarding the rush, guarding up against three guys, just quickly moving from guy to guy, and his footwork left to right laterally was really good. So he played a good bit last year and the year prior just because of injury, but he could be a guy that can come in and be a very nice depth piece for Pitt. He is a redshirt senior. He has experience. Surprised he maybe didn't leave, just with knowing that the talent that did come in from the portal. Who knows? There's still a spring transfer portal window. But if they can hold on to him, if he can improve another year, that'd be huge for that tackle position to have four guys between Piercy, Bear, Stanley, and Enos. There could be huge in terms of depth, in terms of consistency, and options on this line to bring in and out throughout games. Interior wise, Ty Ray was working at left guard, Jackson Brown at right guard. Jackson Brown played a little bit last year, did get a start at tackle, but he's going to move inside. Morris Morencer and Ryan Coretta were working at center, snapping the ball, so those sound like your guys. Coretta specifically looks like he'll be the secondary guy behind Lyndon Cooper. Holmes and Montgomery, Isaiah Montgomery, Caleb Holmes and Isaiah Montgomery look like they are your other two guards in the threes. And that's interesting because Isaiah Montgomery last year had 3 starts at right tackle, and now you move him interior-wise. So it just sounds like Pitt's depth is in a really good spot. And it's a big question of whether or not this could be a strength for this team. It's been a weakness the past 2-3 years. Now they have an opportunity with the depth, with the experience, with some of the returners you have in Cooper, Williams, Bear. Where can this offensive line go? How good can they be in front of Eli Holstein? How good can they block for Desmond Reed? Because it sounded like Desmond Reed and the running backs have been running the ball a lot better than they were last year at this time. Pat Narduzzi mentioned it. So that's a really good thing to see and hear from this Pitt offensive line. So a couple weeks left here in Pitt spring camp. 2 more scrimmages before you get into the Blue Gold spring game where we get a full look of how this O-line will look. And then you go into the offseason and continue to work and get up to par with where you want to be. Get this unit into the weight room. Get them faster, maybe even slim down. Ryan Bear's talking about he's the thinnest and smallest he's been at around 319 pounds since a junior in high school. So a lot of work over the offseason, but sounds like this offensive line unit is starting to make some steps in this offense for Pitt. All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse. We have another one coming up on Thursday. Tomorrow is Pitt Pro Day, so we'll have a lot of content from that. 11 guys expected to work out. Some notable ones, of course, Gavin Bartholomew, Donovan McMillan, Ben Sauls, Kanate Mumfield, Branson Taylor will get a chance to work out. He didn't do so even though he was invited at the NFL Combine, so we'll get the chance to see him as well after he recovered from his injury. So be sure to check it all out on our website, pittsburghsportsnow.com.